Hi guys, I'm Nate from Recapped Now. Today, I'm going to recap a 2024 mystery thriller movie called Model House. Models staying in a secluded house for the night after a photo shoot are held hostage by intruders. The girls must fight for their lives in order to make it out alive and uncover the sinister intentions. Following the sudden death of supermodel Bella Baylor in a car accident, Zoe, a rookie model, takes her place on a major assignment. While Zoe waits for her turn in the swimsuit photograph, Nadia starts a discussion with her. She is thrilled that Zoe is able to join them on such short notice, and she wonders if the woman is excited to be a part of this endeavor. Zoe confirms, but wishes the conditions were better. The photography begins shortly after, and Zoe appears to be nervous in comparison to her more experienced co-workers. Nonetheless, her inherent charisma and amazing visuals propel her to execute an exceptional performance. As a result, the photographer positions her at the forefront of the session. Zoe feels extremely excited, which causes her to slip. Zoe appears at the model house after the accident, wearing a cast on her foot. Inside, she tries to summon her housemates, but no one responds, so she goes to her room. There, she realizes she has been assigned to the top bunk. Nadia suddenly appears and switches rooms with her. Zoe tries to decline, but Nadia reveals that she can't even mount the bunk because of her injuries. This silences Zoe, who realizes she has a point. Nadia proceeds to give her the directions to her new room. When Zoe starts to leave, Nadia hands her an extra top she received from a company. Zoe thanks the woman and promises to try it on later, which brings a smile from Nadia. By the evening, Zoe has donned the top, but she believes it is not her style. Contrary to her expectations, Nadia finds it fits her well, so she requests Zoe's phone to document her beautiful appearance. A while later, the females congregate in the living room. Trudy, one of the well-known models, investigates Zoe's Instagram account and discovers she has the fewest followers of the group. She tells her to display more skin in her images, but Zoe says she can't because she lives in Chicago. In disbelief, Trudy reveals that she lives in New York, and that even when it's snowing, she's unafraid to be brave. After a laugh, the gang returns to their own element, leaving Zoe feeling alienated. Suddenly, she receives a message request from an unknown Instagram account. Zoe accepts his offer, which marks the start of their flirtatious exchange. The man sends her a video in the middle of their talk after discovering she is a science buff. The movie depicts the mating activity of praying mantis, which fascinates Zoe. Nadia notes that she is hooked to her phone, which leads her to believe Zoe is having an intimate conversation with her lover. Contrary to her allegations, Zoe clarifies that a person who has been contacting her sent her a video. Zoe enthusiastically invites Nadia to watch it with her and explains that a male praying mantis pretends dead to avoid death. Nadia considers it strange that he would send such a video to a girl he is flirting with. Nadia is startled when she hears a loud knock, indicating that her ex-boyfriend Steven wishes to speak with her. Because his presence bothers the females, Nadia needs to entertain him. Outside, Steven shows concern about Nadia, who ignores his texts. Furthermore, he is unaware that she will not be home tonight. Nadia emphasizes that just because they live together, she does not have to tell him everything. Instead of appreciating her words, Steven compliments her beauty, including the smallest details like her new haircut. Nadia is taken aback and points out that he had never noticed it before. Steven promptly admits that he has always noticed her and that he is currently the better version of himself. Nonetheless, Nadia is dissatisfied and tries to send him home because men are not permitted on their land. Steven is determined to get inside, but Nadia prevents him. To persuade him, Nadia informs him that his refusal to go inside may result in her dismissal. Steven immediately apologizes for being a bad boyfriend. However, he begs Nadia for a second chance, promising not to like other females' Instagram posts. Sadly, Nadia rejects Steven because she lacks the energy to restore their troubled relationship. Steven reacts negatively to her rejection, demonstrating that he is not honest and has not changed. When Nadia sends him home again, Steven her hair and departs. Later, in their room, Nadia admits it is her fault for neglecting Steven, prompting him to follow her inside the model house. Trudy believes he's a stalker, but Nadia denies it. Later on, the models spend the night in their jacuzzi tub, creating content. Sydney unexpectedly launches a truth or dare game by questioning Carla. Carla is first uninterested, but she eventually succumbs to Nadia's coercion. Sydney challenges her to make out with Trudy when she picks the dare. This does not set well with Carla, so she argues vehemently, believing she would be cheating on her partner. Nadia proposes they only kiss each other on the cheek, which she accepts. However, Trudy boldly turns Carla's head toward her, causing them to kiss. Carla exits the tub abruptly, clearly annoyed. After hanging out in the tub, Nadia tells Zoe about the guy messaging her. She believes she is being catfished, but Zoe denies it. Meanwhile, Sydney wants to exercise, but her jump rope is missing. As a result, she confronts Carla, but the latter taunts her weight instead. Despite being insulted, Sydney continues to seek for it in Carla's room, but the woman says it is not there. Sydney sees she's conducting a sensual live stream, and she wonders if her partner is cool with it. Carla's explanation is that she's doing it to pay the rent. Despite Sydney's tough exterior, Carla's words broke through her. As a result, she departs the house, leaving Nadia apprehensive about what happened between them. Sydney shows her contempt for Carla, claiming that she is entitled because she meets the beauty criteria. This prompts Sydney to discuss the difficulties she faces as a plus-size model in their field. She misses her close friend Bella, especially because the late supermodel never looked down on her. Nadia urges Sydney to be a team player, even though she dislikes her teammates. Nadia gives Sydney a blunt to cheer her up, but she swiftly rejects. Nadia reminds her of Bella's words about indulging oneself, and she eventually relents. Nadia then exits to complete her cosmetic routine in preparation for tomorrow's call time. While alone, Sydney notices a car arrive in front of their home. Sydney, thinking it's one of the model's boyfriends, approaches it to find out who it is. Suddenly, a masked person named Thomas grabs her from behind and threatens her with a revolver. Then he drags her inside the house and holds the other models captive. Carla notices the disturbance in their living room and attempts to flee. Unfortunately, Annie, a female invader, blocks her path, thwarting her escape strategy. Moments later, the invaders line up the models, only to realize that Nadia is missing. Annie orders her accomplice to look for her. The woman in question almost enters the living room, but when she sees her housemate's plight, she stops. Nadia quickly hides in her closet, forgetting to remove her phone. As if on cue, her phone rings, catching Thomas's attention. He hastily examines the closet, but Nadia is not to be found. Unbeknownst to him, she is balancing herself on the ceiling. She may have deceived him once, but luck isn't on her side. Her arms had given out, forcing her to make an unpleasant noise. Unfortunately, the two intruders are on a mission to catch her. Nadia refuses to back down and attempts to subdue Thomas, but Annie fires a revolver at her, rendering her defenseless. Back in the living room, Thomas stresses that what they are doing is not an abduction because there is no ransom. Annie takes over and reveals that they plan to defraud their fans by publishing a donation link on their social media profiles. She adds that after they have raised $1 million, they vow to provide the models the opportunity to resume their glamorous lives. Annie begins their operation by unlocking the models' phones using face recognition biometrics. Second, she looks for an attractive photograph that would entice their following. Third, she posts a caption imploring their followers to donate to the phony Bella Baylor Family Foundation contribution link. Once the invaders have successfully carried out their plan, the couple checks on their progress and discovers that it is gaining traction. Thomas acknowledges that he was originally hesitant, but he believes it will thrive given the numbers they are receiving. When the models see their admirers' donations, they feel awful for them since they know their money is not going to a worthwhile purpose. Zoe questions Trudy about the possible identities of their intruders. Trudy may consider them to be fanatic fans. With this in mind, Zoe wonders how they know the house's position when they are in a remote place. While they strive to figure out who the intruders are, Annie and Thomas face a predicament because the numbers aren't increasing. As a result, Annie decides to spice up their operations. She proposes that they go live, but none of the models agree. Annie tells them that their stubbornness can extend their captivity, so Trudy volunteers. Despite Trudy's enthusiasm and confidence in doing sensuous dances, she isn't earning the Intruders' required amount. Carla volunteers to be the night's entertainer since she believes she is an expert at it. During her turn, Carla gives her admirers a preview of her act, but she swiftly exploits the broadcast to seek assistance from the authorities. Instead of being terrified, Annie laughs at her and admits she has never gone live. Carla attacks Annie in an attempt to take the phone from her grasp. Carla immediately goes live and asks her fans for help. Annie smacks her with a revolver, causing her head to collide with the table. The entire room, including the Intruders, goes into great panic. Thomas reprimands her for her behavior, especially because they will be punished to a horrific crime. Now he tries to leave the procedure, but Annie prevents him. She reminds him of their vacation plans as a couple and the material items they can buy once they have the money. Thomas eventually relents, but insists that they depart in 1 hour. Following their chat, Thomas dragged Carla's body into the storage room. When he returns, Annie tells him that Carla's followers are concerned about her following her brief live stream. As a result, the couple creates a message in which Carla claims to have had a network problem immediately before. Steven unexpectedly returns to the house to apologize to Nadia for his irresponsibility earlier. However, when he glances out the window, the house appears to be empty. But because he is stubborn, Steven goes to the door and repeatedly rings the doorbell. Thomas reveals his identity in order to appear less suspicious when talking with Steven. When Steven opens the door, he welcomes Thomas and requests to speak with Nadia. Thomas informs him that a person named Nadia does not live in the house, implying that Steven is incorrect. Regardless, Steven attempts to enter, but Thomas blocks his path. Steven eventually leaves, but he wonders why there is a man inside, given that Nadia told her they weren't allowed there. As a result, he leaves Nadia a voice message informing her about the man from earlier. Steven is still dissatisfied with how things have turned out, so he goes to the house's kitchen window to seek answers. Unfortunately, he discovers the restrained models in the kitchen, which alarms him. As a result, he attempts to contact the police, but Thomas appears, armed with a revolver. Steven is swift on his feet and successfully subdues him before taking his revolver. Now that he has Thomas as a prisoner, he threatens Annie that if she does anything wrong, he would shoot him. Annie surrenders, and he orders her to free the models. While Annie begins undoing their handcuffs, a loud gunshot resonates across the room, and Steven collapses to the ground. Flip, Annie's foster brother and another accomplice, comes just in time to rescue the day. Later, Annie advises Thomas to wipe their DNA in the house, as the authorities may be able to trace them through it. Meanwhile, Flip disrobes to clean up the mess his comrades have created, leaving the females alone for a brief while. Trudy and Nadia order Zoe to retrieve his gun because she is the only one whose feet are not bound. Despite her wishes, Zoe complies and discreetly approaches Flip's possessions. She manages to collect his gun, but the man has caught her in the act. Outside, Sydney struggles to free herself, forcing her chair to collapse. This allows her to see the invaders' faces. Thomas helps her get up and assures her that she will be fine. When he returns to their table, the couple hears the other models yell for aid, so Thomas dashes in. Annie stays behind and throws Sydney into the fire, having seen their faces. In the living room, Thomas comes just in time to prevent Flip from strangling Zoe. Nadia seizes this opportunity to take Flip's gun, but Annie attempts to stop her. As a result, Nadia accidentally shoots Annie, which alarmed Thomas. Annie swears she is okay and orders him to take care of their money. This time, Thomas publicly accuses Flip of spoiling their intentions. A while later, an injured Annie protects the remaining models in the kitchen as her associates dispose of the bodies. Because of her injury, she becomes ignorant of what the models intend to accomplish. Trudy takes Nadia's lighter from her pocket and burns the cords around Zoe's wrist. Once finished, Trudy summons Flip to request permission to use the bathroom. Flip is suspicious, so he suggests she on the floor. Trudy, on the other hand, insists on being allowed to defecate because she needs to. Flip is unconcerned, so Trudy tells him it is inhumane to leave her alone. Flip, irritated, gives in and approaches them. The models attack and restrain Flip, forcing him to wake his ailing sister. Annie, disoriented, tries to fire them, but misses utterly. Trudy takes advantage of this moment to hide behind the kitchen counter, while Zoe walks to the door and leaves. Nadia's luck runs out when Flip captures her and stops her escape. As a result, she encourages Zoe to continue her search for aid. Flip opposes it since Zoe may put them to jail, so he tells Thomas to shoot her. In obedience, Thomas shoots Zoe until she is unconscious. Back inside the home, Trudy tosses a marble pestle at Flip, freeing Nadia from his grip. Unfortunately, Annie grabs Nadia from behind and starts choking her. Fortunately, Sydney, who has burn injuries, rushes to Nadia's aid. She strangles Annie with her jump rope, rendering her comatose. Meanwhile, Trudy hurries to the garage, attempting to open the door. It unfolds gently, allowing Flip time to deal with her. Tragically, Trudy dies after he stabs her with a garden pick hoe. When Flip arrives to the living room, he learns that Sydney and Nadia have restrained Thomas. Sydney, pointing a gun at Flip, orders him to down his weapon. The man complies and assures her that she is in control. Suddenly, he taunts Sydney, inciting panic among the women. Nadia orders her to shoot him, and she complies. Unluckily, she misses, and her gun jams, so she throws it at him. An enraged Flip approaches Sydney, hurling threats at her. In an instant, Flip shoots and kills Sydney. Nadia panics and hides. Flip questions Thomas about her whereabouts, but he has no idea. When Flip turns around, Nadia shocks him by stabbing his eye with a shattered glass. Flip, enraged by her behavior, kicks her, sending her flying. Nadia is persistent, so she tackles him to the ground. However, Flip takes out his knife and repeatedly stabs Nadia on her flank. In Zoe's case, she awakens unhurt while pretending to be dead. She immediately rushes to their neighbor's house to ask for assistance. When she returns to the model house, she finds a dying Nadia on the floor. She runs to her and assures her that the cops are on their way. Unfortunately, Nadia is on the verge of death, and her final words are to warn her of Flip's presence. Flip appears frightening, as she has stated. Thomas alerts Zoe by kicking the rifle in her direction. Without hesitation, she kills Flip. Now they're alone, Thomas begs her to let him leave. He admits that he is only a pawn in the operation, and that Annie planned this. Zoe refuses to release him, particularly after he attempted to shoot her. To show his right to be free, he reveals all of Annie's secrets. According to him, Annie is obsessed with models and wants to build a large following. It turns out she's the Instagram user Zoe used to communicate with. Furthermore, the URL to the video Zoe watched enabled Annie to track their location. Zoe becomes enraged after knowing this and wishes to end Annie's life. Thomas tries to stop her since he feels his lover has already died. Regardless, Zoe wants to know where her body is, so Thomas informs her that Annie is in the hallway. Zoe approaches Annie's body, but ultimately decides to drop the gun. At that point, the authorities arrive, and Zoe deals with them. The officers enter the home to start their investigation. Unbeknownst to them, Annie is still alive and flees the crime site. Please do hit that like button if you enjoyed the recap. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell for more movie recaps. Stay tuned for our next cinematic adventure, and until then, happy watching.